Okay, so now all the glue is dry, and you can see this is a very solid piece, no more sliding around. Our split fence. And I also made a corner piece, just basically putting 3 pillars and connecting that way. Here's an example of a finished one. Alright, so that's what that's going to be. Alright, and for the next step, we're just going to give this a rough dirt texture on the base. I've done this on some of my other videos, so you can skip this part if you need to, but basically what you do is you water down some white glue, or you can use some Mod Podge, which is basically a watered down white glue you can buy in the store. And for my basing material, I've got this big bin of sand and kitty litter mixture. I've mixed some kitty litter with some sand. It gives a nice dirt texture. So basically I take my watered down glue and I go around the base of this on the cardboard or my matting board. Alright, so I just make sure I've saturated the base of this. A little drips off, no big deal. It's probably a little watery. I could have increased my glue to water ratio there a little bit. Basically, once you've got that nice and coated, you get your bin of your sand and kitty litter and basically just let it cover the area. Shake all the loose stuff off, and as you can see, now this has a dirt texture on the bottom. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on this corner piece. Let it drip around, go around. So I just want coverage. That's what I'm looking for. You can go in and touch up spots that you missed, but it's kind of a pain. So you really want to get a nice saturation of your watered down glue on the base to begin with. Makes it 10 times easier. Alright, so that's ready to go. It'll drip off there. Alright, here's my sand and kitty litter mixture. Try to get on camera here. Just dip it in. Okay, you could also shake it onto it if you wanted to. And there it is. Got some nice texture for the base now that's going to paint up well, especially when dry brushed. Okay, and there it is. So I'm going to let this dry now that I've got my textured base, and the next step will be painting and details. So we'll get to that in a couple minutes, at least as far as the video is concerned. So see you in a second. Okay, now that my ground cover is dry, my base texture, I'm going to move on to some painting. And as always on terrain projects, I almost always, especially unless it's something very unique, I use cheap craft paints like Apple Barrel Colors or Folk Art. And I use these big bottles because they're very inexpensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some dark brown paint that I'm going to use for my base dirt on my ground texture and also for the fence. I like dark wood for like an old fence, old wood, and then I can weather it with a tan later on, some dry brushing. But basically I start with my dark brown, and I go ahead and go in there and I begin to cover my base with this. Now that I'm discovering pretty quickly this paint is pretty thick, so I'm just going to add some water in there, help it flow a little bit to speed things up. Okay, and that'll give me a better coating. I'm going to try to avoid the stone as much as possible, the stone being the pink styrofoam bits, but I'll get to that in a second. So what I'm going to do is kind of speed up the camera here as I paint over this, and then you can see the finished result of the base coating of brown on the wood and on the ground in just a second. So here I go. Okay, so there's the finished product as far as the brown paint anyway. And I'm going to move right on to painting it onto this corner piece, which I don't need to do on camera because now you see how that works. And when that brown's dry, we're going to come back and talk about the next step. So I'll be right back.